Welcome back. WNST desk, and certainly playing in Nashville earlier for the Ravens and the Titans, and being outside the stadium and looking up and seeing Steve McNair 4 stories high, still staring down over the Cumberland River a few weeks ago, brought this story to mind. It found its way to me on Twitter. Fall of a Titan is a new podcast coming this month. You can find it out at SI.com. You can find Tim Rohan at Tim Rohan. That's Rohan out on Twitter. I don't know you, Tim, but I do sports radio around here. I've done it a long time. And in spending some time in Nashville with Steve McNair, as I have done at a charity event at the end of his life, as well as in Baltimore for the couple of years he played football here and almost willed us to a Super Bowl in 2006. It's a pleasure to have you on, and as a radio guy who does sort of a little podcast thing around here as well, I love when podcast formats are coming out and people are sort of pushing the envelope on what they're doing with miniseries and long-form storytelling. So it's great to have you on today. Good day to you, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nestor.
Well, tell me the story. Steve McNair fell into my life, and, I guess when he became a Houston Oiler, because they were my team before the Ravens were here, and then he became a Tennessee Titan, and then after that a Raven, and a guy we competed with, and obviously the famous Ray Lewis, Eddie George game in 2000. And then the tragic death, apparently on a couch in an apartment. And I remember how my blood ran cold on that 4th of July when my friend, who had some mutual friends in Nashville, then sent me a text saying, Steve McNair's dead, get to the internet. And it was an afternoon on the 4th of July. And, I've got my own story that I'm going to tell for the first time in the framework of this. But how does a nasty story like this find its way to your desk, Tim?
Yeah, I think, first of all, you're right. I mean, it was a tragic way for, anyone to die, let alone a public figure. But, Steve, so Steve ended up, he retired from football in 2008, and he retired with the Ravens. He was 35 years old. And then a year later, on July 4th, 2009, 1 year after he retired from football, he was found dead in his condo, and he had been shot 4 times. He'd been shot twice in the chest, twice in the head. And his mistress, Jenny Kazemi, was found dead at his feet. And so, the police quickly ruled that it was a murder-suicide. They said that the mistress had killed Steve and then killed herself, and they detailed kind of some of the personal issues that she was going through. And, first of all, this started about last summer when my editor approached me. We just felt like there hadn't really been a lot written about a really big deep dive into McNair's death. And, people in Baltimore, I'm sure, they remember Steve playing for them, and people in Nashville, certainly, like you said, the banner's still up with him. He was a beloved guy. I mean, he was a co-MVP with Peyton Manning. He nearly won the Super Bowl. He was a really decorated quarterback, and he had this tragic ending. And so we really wanted to dive into his story and find out, the details of what happened there. And, when I started looking into it, I found that there was a lot of people on both sides, both families of Jenny Kazemi and Steve McNair, people who still have questions. People who still have questions. Friends, family, people who still to this day, people who don't believe that Jenny killed Steve. And it seemed like this case was really still alive. And so
there was a reporter sniffing that out, right? There was a city reporter in Nashville that put a lot of effort into that, right? And I think in Nashville, if you talk to people, there is a common belief that there's something else that happened there. And I know how these urban myths pick up. There was a Cal Ripken urban myth that went on for 1 billion years about Kevin Costner here that was ridiculous on the face of it and the lights going out, but such a delicious story that everyone told it, even though it wasn't based in truth. I mean, it was sort of original fake news of how these tales grow taller on down the line. But certainly forensics and all sorts of things get brought in with investigations here. And and this was a lurid tale, right? I mean, and people wanted to sort of wrap it up and make it go away for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, the league didn't want it around. I find it fascinating on a weekend when I was there that Tennessee honored Robert Brazile, who was an Oiler, and I started to think, like, there are no Titan legends. There's Eddie George and there's Steve McNair, and the Steve McNair thing isn't such a happy story to tell. And it's probably the same way San Diego doesn't have the Chargers anymore, but the Junior Seau story is not a story that feels good, makes you want to come out and feel good about it. I'm still shocked that McNair is, I don't want to say beloved in any given way, given what he was accused of at the end and how it all went down and the tragedy of it all, but I'm sort of shocked to see him bandied about as a Titans hero on the side of buildings, because I think there are two sides to that in a lot of ways, and I don't know that it's a feel-good story in any way for anybody. And I think you bringing this podcast to light probably brings even more intrigue to sort of take a deeper dive into this, right?
Yeah. I mean, we really get into, I think we go deeper than anyone's gone on this story. I think, people who, and to your point about, that people still beloved, that Steve McNair is still a beloved figure. I mean, I don't think anyone, I think Steve was a complicated guy, and just like we all are, I think there was, a lot deeper there, but, I think that's something, I've done a lot of interviews on Nashville radio this past week, and a lot of people are, some of them are expressing, it sounds like from what I've heard, are expressing kind of, they want to remember Steve, as the football player, as the hero they remember from that Super Bowl, from that MVP season. And, we're going to, this podcast is going to go deeper than that, and it's going to show you kind of behind the scenes what was happening leading up to the end of his life and then what's happened since then. So, it may, show you a little bit more than, you're willing to know if you're a fan and you don't want to have your image of Steve McNair, changed at all. But yeah, I think this podcast is really going to shine a light on who he was and really what was happening, around the time of his death.
What can I expect? And, time invested in this, and I know it is a series, and I think that the whole notion of a podcast series, in recent times I've written some books, and then I've wondered what to do with them, and I am, first and foremost a writer and an author, but also do radio here and reading books on tape, and Springsteen read me his book recently. But this is different. This is not a written novella. This is a spoken word conversation with insiders. Give me a little background into the project itself, and if one invests in this story, how long it goes and where it's going.
Sure. It's a 9-episode podcast, and it's coming out Wednesday, October 17th, and there's gonna be a new episode every Wednesday, pretty much through the end of the year. And we're going to dig into every aspect of the case. We're going to get into Steve's background, into Jenny's background. We're going to talk about the people involved in the case. There was two of Steve's friends who found the bodies. We're going to talk about the ex-con who allegedly sold Jenny the murder weapon that was used to kill Steve. We're going to talk about Steve's family. We're going to talk about Jenny's family. We're going to really dive into the context and really see what was going on around the time when Steve died. And I wish I could be give you more detail, but we're going to save a little bit for the podcast. But yeah, I mean, it's a scripted series, so it's not just a casual conversation per se. It's more, we wrote out scripts and we interviewed, dozens and dozens of people who, friends, family, teammates, on both sides. And I think it's a really well-rounded approach, and we're going to lay everything out there. And I think there's going to be points, that really make you think and maybe challenge what the preconceived notion of what happened to Steve McNair.
I had a night with him in Nashville at a bar called Limelight that I drove by on my way to the airport, literally, outside the stadium. And we did a thing for Ronald McDonald House with Ravens fans, and it led the news that McNair was high-fiving Ravens fans, and I was sort of the person. And the money that was raised, we wound up in a room with the money that was raised that was going to his charity in Ronald McDonald House. And I will just say it was one of the more uncomfortable 10 minutes of my life in regard to firearms, in regard to alcohol, in regard to intimidation. And, obviously the money was for charity or whatever, but it was a very, very troubling few minutes for me. And 6 months later, he's murdered. And I don't even know what to say other than I saw the company he was keeping, and it was not the life that was portrayed. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and I think there's some questions about, like you mentioned. I mean, there's some questions about who Steve associated himself with.
I'm having a little volume problem with you, so I just want to keep you on. But I don't want to break tape, but I just have a little volume problem.
Oh, can you hear me now?
You're perfect. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I think we get into that a little bit. The people who Steve was associated with. There's a bunch of rumors about what could have actually happened to him if it was in fact not Jenny Kazemi who killed him. And I think I'm sure you're not the only one around Nashville who saw who Steve associated himself with or saw what he was doing and, saw what was going on and thought, there's a chance that, some other, nefarious thing happened or some other foul play came.
Hey, I'll be really honest with you. After being witness to what I witnessed and just being around it for 20 minutes, literally, maybe an hour, when he was found dead, I turned to my wife and I said, this isn't the shocker of all shockers to me, right? Based on what I knew and where I was, that there was some heavy stuff going on that I have no idea how to peel back that onion. And certainly now going on a decade later, almost, that people still wonder, and I still wonder, you know what I mean? I've read it, I saw it, I was choked up, I was moved. I know a lot of people who like Steve, I like Steve, and I think it's not a pretty story, right? Like, and there are going to be a lot of people that want to protect Steve's image and aren't going to like you in the coming weeks, right, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I think we're really going to dive into the truth about what was going on and what was happening, and I think we're gonna we're trying to get to the bottom of what really happened. In the eyes of these people who have questions, right? Family members and friends who don't believe that Jenny killed Steve.
But as a police matter, it's a closed case, right? There is no case, right? Literally, right?
Yeah, as far as the police are concerned, they closed it. They held a press conference 4 days after the bodies were found, and they announced that Jenny had killed Steve. So they've been
4 days, and there has never been. What would ever change that? I mean, I'm just asking. What would ever?
Sure. Well, I mean, if new information was to come to light, or new evidence, or there's been one of the people we talked to in the story is named Vincent Hill. He's a ex-Nashville cop who's kind of taken upon himself to investigate the case. He's made attempts to get the case reopened. I mean, I guess. Talking to the family, I mean, it's a matter of, I guess, public interest, being reignited in the case, and maybe some pressure is applied, and who knows? But I interviewed the police as part of the story, and I think it would take new information or new evidence at this point for them to consider, doing something.
Tim Rowan is joining us here. He's from Sports Illustrated. He's doing a podcast on the death of Steve McNair, and I think all of us sort of remember where we were on the 4th of July because we sent out the WNST text, at least 10,000 of you, and it obviously was all over social media, which was sort of in a very infantile state, as I remembered at that point. Not everybody was so connected in such a way, and it was shocking to the sports world, but maybe not so shocking to some people in Nashville, and Tim is peeling back part of the story. And I guess you could bring this back to the beginning and say, why here, why now, why is it of interest? But it is such an urban legend thing in Nashville. There's no one in Nashville that isn't aware that there was some smoke and some bubbles and some something, because it is the urban legend of all urban legends in Nashville, as I know it to be. I'm not familiar with the community, but I don't think there's a Titans fan that isn't going to be at least a little interested in what you might have uncovered or recovered, or giving a voice to folks that haven't spoken about what they feel or what they think or what they may know or might not know or believe.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, Nestor. I think I think there's why now? I mean, it's because there's still questions, and there's still people that don't think that it's settled, and whether it's people around Nashville, whether it's people close to Steve or close to Jenny, I think we thought it'd be. We thought that there was an interesting story to kind of explore this and see if there was, any validity to these questions.
When do these podcasts come out? I know it's starting now. This is going to be going on for the next couple of when does it end, and when are they released? And
So
it's all new to me. Wednesday, I'm used to having a TV guide, bro. I'm an old guy. I'm 50 now,
Yeah. So, you could go si.com /McNair. We're going to have a hub page where every Wednesday, a new episode's going to be uploaded. We're going to make it easy, and so you could just click on episode 1, episode 2. They come out every Wednesday. It should be up first thing in the morning, and it starts October 17th, and it's every Wednesday through December 19th, I believe.
Wow.
So, October through December, and every Wednesday it should be there first thing in the morning. To make it easy on you, you could also get it on Apple Podcasts right on your phone, or iTunes. If you just go to podcasts and you search "Fall of a Titan," which is the name of the podcast, just hit subscribe, and should be that easy. So.
All right, man. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you and have you on, and I'm looking forward to uncovering the work. There will be no written word on this, or no transcript or anything like that. It is a listen-only format, correct?
Yes, it's a listen-only format. We're in the process of maybe doing an excerpted version or some sort of shorter print version that will appear at some point. But no, for the most part, it'll just be the podcast. So.
And an hour each, or
no?
multiple?
Yeah, each one's probably going to be around 30 to 45 minutes.
Perfect.
In that range.
All right, my brother. Well, hey, man, carving out new areas for SI.com, a podcast series, and a little bit of an investigative series, I would call it, with Tim Rowan. You can find him at Tim Rowan. That's ROHAN, out on Twitter, as well as at SI and SI.com /McNair. Hey, a pleasure to have you on, and anyone doing the good work out there and talking to people and learning stuff and teaching me stuff, I'm all about it. And I did like Steve, and Steve did a good turn with me for the Ronald McDonald House. The last time I saw him alive when I walked out of Limelight, and I did worry for him that evening, and so I will be interested in this. I think a lot of cities will be.
Nestor.
Appreciate you. You got a Tim Rowan joining us here from SI. You can find me out in the Buy, a Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. And, of course, the morning newspaper ships directly to your email inbox each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness at PlanetFitness.com, where it's $5 down, $10 a month. That's the way it works. You know where Planet Fitness is. Get a little chilly outside. Get inside. Get yourself in the best shape of your life. They're counting on it. Get some inspiration out there at Planet of Triumphs as well. Our tech service is our best breaking news service. It's all brought to you by our friends Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is here each and every Thursday getting you ready for the weekend and Ravens activity. And maybe a little pumpkin spice. I think I'm going to talk some pumpkin spice with Dennis before it's all over with here in this fall. And, of course, you can find him at Coons Ford Security Boulevard and our tech service. Sign up online. It's the best stuff we do around here. I am a very available individual. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live right here on our WNSTV YouTube channel and Facebook Live. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.